Hi guys, so Brexit was sold as access to cheaper food through trade deals. Well, that doesn't seem to be going to plan, as heads of industry are now warning that food prices are rising, but they're also warning of less choice, all down to Brexit. Due to a shortage of seasonal fruit and veg pickers, consumers will see less and less availability of their favourites. Some parts of the UK are currently missing as much as 75% of their seasonal staff, and this is likely to see a repeat of last year's problems, which resulted in produce left to rot in fields. The next 2 weeks are deeply concerning for those in the sector. Broccoli and courgettes are now close to picking time. Julian Marks, managing director of food and farming firm Barfoot's, told the Grocer magazine that the situation was becoming pretty desperate. He said, and I quote, "Ultimately, if it can't be harvested, there will be gaps on shelves." Now, the Department for Food and Rural Affairs, along with its head George Eustace, have said that they understand the problems facing the food and farming sector and that they are working with the Home Office to resolve the problem. They have been attempting to attract British workers to the industry, but it seems not to be going as well as they had hoped. Staff shortages range from anything from 30% in some parts to 75% in other parts of the country. Julian Marks continued, "We're just about keeping our heads above water, but it could change in 48 hours or a week depending on delays on permits. The challenge for us comes in about a fortnight's time when we have the Tenderstorm broccoli and courgettes come in together, and we still have asparagus to pick now. Crops ready to pick now are being left to rot in the ground, which will inevitably cause food shortages in the shops. I know that there are salad growers in Kent who have already walked past crops." For decades, the vast majority of seasonal workers have arrived from overseas, including from EU member states. When the UK was a member of the European Union, most workers in the sector came from Eastern Europe, but Brexit saw that hugely disrupted. Due to Home Office rules, temporary staff now need visas. A large number of Britain's seasonal workers also came from Ukraine and Russia, which is now further reducing the number of pickers available to the UK. The Seasonal Workers Visa Scheme was brought in back in 2019. This allows pickers to be flown in from any country around the world. In 2021, more than 16,000 labourers were shipped in from across 37 countries, including as far away as Barbados, Nepal and the Philippines. Now, the number of seasonal workers arriving via the system jumped from 7,000 in 2020 to 16,000 in 2021. And the Home Office has had to revise the requirements for these visas in order to get more workers in. But Priti Patel's red tape has resulted in both delays in the issuing of visas and some candidates being mistakenly rejected, which has resulted in a backlog. If you have been watching this channel for some time, you will have seen the fight between DEFRA and the Home Office being played out in select committees. The industry asked for help, the demand for more visas or the loosening of rules. DEFRA then explain how their hands are tied, and then the committee gets stonewalled when they speak to the Home Office. One Brexiteer strategy that has failed was to get more British people to work in the fields and packing, but it didn't work because there were plenty of more quote-unquote desirable jobs available for the unemployed. However, this doesn't mean that the government is giving up. They're planning new schemes this year to encourage Britons to take up summer jobs picking fruit and vegetables. The Home Office has also promised to issue another 10,000 visas, but this wasn't exactly welcomed by the sector. Mr. Marks said that the visas were not being issued fast enough to fill vacancies needed now and for the June and July peak season. He said, "It's going to be absolutely no use for somebody to say more labour is going to arrive in August and September." A spokesperson for the government said that they're doing everything they can to mitigate the staffing problems, saying, "We have given the industry greater certainty in accessing seasonal migrant labour by extending the seasonal workers visa route until the end of 2024. This allows overseas workers to come to the UK for up to 6 months to work in the horticultural sector, in addition to EU nationals living in the UK with settled or pre-settled status." In regards to hiring British workers, the government said that it was working towards attracting UK workers to the sector. The problem here is twofold. One is that the government doesn't understand the nature of the industry. Another was explained by Mr. Marks, who said, The notion is that somewhere in the UK there are hordes of hard-working people who want to come and pick fruit and vegetables. The reality is those people are not there. This warning comes as MPs were told that chronic labour shortages in the food and farming sector could see food prices continue to rise. Inflation is expected to peak at over 10% this year. But while the focus here is on fruit and vegetable pickers, it must be remembered that other sectors are struggling with chronic staff shortages too. A lack of meat processing workers has seen carcasses shipped to Ireland for processing. There have been over 35,000 pigs culled because they weren't being processed, and nearly a quarter of the UK daffodil crop has gone unpicked. The core problem here is the Brexit mentality at the very top. The Home Office don't want to issue sufficient visas. They also don't want to make it easier for people to come into the country. At the same time, DEFRA don't want to highlight Brexit as a core problem, and they would prefer to blame peripheral issues and thus hamstring any real effort to fix the problem. Sadly for farmers, producers, and ultimately the public, these problems will not truly be fixed until the ideologues are out of office. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think about all of this. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.